From the very first glance, nothing about Ethan and Clara's life looked unusual to the outside world. They lived in a mansion with tall gates, ivy crawling along polished stone walls, and perfectly trimmed gardens that looked like something out of a magazine. Clara, glowing with the radiance of pregnancy, often walked slowly through the rose garden, one hand resting protectively on her 7-month baby bump, while neighbors admired from afar, believing she was living a fairy tale. But behind those walls, a darkness was quietly brewing, one that Clara herself didn't fully sense until it was almost too late. Ethan, her wealthy husband, the man everyone admired for his charm and success, had a plan. A sick, twisted plan that would rip Clara's world apart. He wasn't celebrating the life growing inside her, he was preparing to steal it from her. If you believe in kindness, in justice, and in the power of truth to overcome lies, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Royal Stories, and share it with others, because stories like these remind us of the battles so many silently fight, and the importance of second chances. Clara had met Ethan 3 years ago when she was working at a nonprofit organization. She was humble, grounded, and had never been drawn to material wealth. But Ethan swept into her life with dazzling confidence. He was a self-made millionaire, a man who had fought his way to the top of the corporate ladder, or so everyone believed. To Clara, he seemed protective, generous, and deeply loving. They married quickly, and the early days felt like a dream. But slowly, Ethan's demeanor began to change. The warmth in his eyes grew cold, his controlling nature surfaced, and Clara found herself increasingly isolated in the grand mansion. When she discovered she was pregnant, she hoped the news would melt Ethan's harshness, bring back the man she once knew. Instead, it seemed to ignite something darker in him. Ethan's obsession with the baby grew disturbing. He hired private doctors she never met, insisted she wasn't fit to handle stress, and began limiting her communication with her own family. Every move she made was monitored. Clara brushed it off as overprotectiveness at first, convincing herself he was only anxious about the baby's health. But she began to notice patterns. He spoke less of our child, and more about his child. His words cut through her like ice, but she pushed them aside, hoping she was only overthinking. The only solace Clara found was in small moments when she could walk outside. The mansion's walls felt like a prison, but the garden allowed her to breathe. There she would sometimes run into Grace, a middle-aged neighbor who lived in the modest house across the street. Grace was warm, with silver streaks in her hair and a gentle smile that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. She often asked how Clara was doing, and Clara, though careful, slowly opened up, dropping small hints about the loneliness she felt. Grace sensed the heaviness in Clara's voice but didn't cry too much, until one night changed everything. It was a stormy evening when Grace noticed unusual activity at Ethan's mansion. Luxury cars arrived quietly, headlights cutting through sheets of rain. Strange men in suits slipped inside, their movements brisk and secretive. Something about it unsettled her. Grace, being tech-savvy and protective by nature, set up her phone by the window and began live-streaming what she saw. She never expected that this small act would unravel a monstrous plan. Inside, Clara had been instructed by Ethan to stay in her room. He told her he had business matters to discuss. But curiosity, mixed with fear, pushed her to crack the door open. From the hallway, she overheard fragments of conversation drifting up from the grand dining hall. Words that froze her blood. Once the baby is delivered, we'll transfer custody immediately. She won't be in the condition to resist. We'll move her to the private facility, permanent care, out of sight. Clara's knees weakened. They were talking about her. Ethan's plan was to declare her unfit, confine her to some hidden institution, and steal her baby the moment it was born. Her breath caught in her throat, her heart racing against her ribs. She backed into her room, hands trembling over her belly, whispering to her unborn child that she would protect them no matter what. But how? Trapped, Cut off from friends and family, with guards at the gates, Clara felt powerless. Grace's livestream, meanwhile, was catching more than just cars arriving. She zoomed in and managed to catch snippets of conversations through open windows. The words were faint but chilling. Custody, facility, surrogacy cover-up. The viewers watching began commenting furiously, urging her to call the police. Grace's heart pounded. Was Clara in danger? She had no proof beyond the livestream, but something told her she needed to act immediately. The next day, Clara found her chance. When one of Ethan's staff accidentally left a phone unlocked on the counter, Clara rushed to the bathroom and searched the call history. She found private calls to a secluded clinic known for discreet arrangements. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized the magnitude of Ethan's betrayal. She wasn't just battling a controlling husband, she was fighting for her child's very existence. Her first instinct was fear, but then a fire lit within her. For months, she had allowed Ethan to dictate her world, believing she had no power. But the life inside her reminded her she wasn't alone. She wasn't just a wife, she was a mother. And mothers don't give up without a fight. She began whispering her plan into existence. She needed to escape, to expose Ethan before it was too late. Grace's live streams continued, each night capturing strange late-hour meetings and questionable deliveries into the mansion. Viewers online began piecing together the narrative, and soon, a small army of strangers was rooting for Clara's safety, though she had no idea yet. Grace finally decided to leave a note secretly slipped into Clara's mailbox. If you need help, show me a sign. You're not alone. Clara found it one morning during her walk and sobbed silently. For the first time in months, she felt a glimmer of hope. What followed was a tense, emotional dance of secrecy and courage. Clara began signaling to Grace with small gestures during her walks, lingering by the gate longer than usual, nodding subtly when asked about her well-being. Grace knew time was running out. She compiled her livestream recordings, screenshots, and viewer testimonies into a file and went to the police. At first, they hesitated. After all, Ethan was wealthy, influential, and known for his charitable work. But the livestream's viral spread left them no choice but to investigate. The night of Ethan's final move came quickly. Clara overheard him on the phone saying, "Tomorrow, she'll be gone. The baby is mine." That night, Clara prayed with tears streaming down her face, begging for strength. Grace, on the other side of the street, didn't sleep either. She kept her phone recording, watching the mansion like a hawk. When the black vans arrived at dawn, police were already waiting in unmarked cars nearby, thanks to Grace's evidence. What was supposed to be Clara's darkest hour turned into Ethan's downfall. As men entered the mansion to escort Clara to the so-called facility, police stormed in, shouting commands. Chaos erupted. Clara clutched her belly, terrified, but then she saw Grace rushing forward, wrapping her arms around her as if shielding her from the storm. The officers quickly restrained Ethan and his accomplices. His mask of charm shattered into fury and desperation as he screamed about his rights. But the world finally saw him for what he was, a man consumed by greed and control, willing to destroy the woman who trusted him. Clara collapsed into Grace's arms, sobbing with relief. The nightmare was over. She wasn't alone anymore. The livestream, the courage of one neighbor, and the silent prayers she had whispered in the dark had saved her. Months later, Clara delivered a healthy baby boy, surrounded by love and support, not walls and fear. Grace became like family to her, a living reminder that even in the darkest times, kindness can shine through and change everything. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Royal Stories, and share it with others. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter, stories of courage, survival, and the power of human connection. Before we end, we have a special request. Comment below with the words, "Kindness wins," if you believe love and truth will always overcome lies and cruelty.